Since the beginning of this campaign, we've been talking about change. Right? Everywhere I go, we've been talking about change. That's been the theme of this campaign. And we must be on to something, because I notice now everybody's talking about change now. Everybody's talking about change. So John McCain, he's over the last couple of days, John McCain has said, John McCain has said that change is coming. That's what he says. Now think about this. This is coming from the party that's been in charge for 8 years. They've been running the show. Been up in the White House. John McCain brags, 90% of the time I have voted with George Bush. He and I, we're right there. And suddenly, he's the change agent. He says, I'm going to tell those lobbyists that their days of running Washington are over. Who's he going to tell? Is he going to tell his campaign chairman, who's one of the biggest corporate lobbyists in Washington? Is he going to tell his campaign manager, who was one of the biggest corporate lobbyists in Washington? Is he going to tell all the folks who are running his campaign, who are the biggest corporate lobbyists in Washington? Who is it that he's going to tell the change is coming? I mean, come on. They must think you're stupid. You know, I guess, I mean, maybe what they're saying is, watch out, George Bush. Except for economic policies and tax policies and energy policies and healthcare policies and education policies and Karl Rove style of politics, except for all that, we're really going to bring change to Washington. We're going to shake things up. What are these guys talking about? You think we haven't been paying attention over the last 8 years? Now, listen. We need change, but let's be absolutely clear about what change is and is not. Change is not continuing the same tax policies of George Bush, giving tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas. Change is making sure those tax breaks go to companies that are investing right here in Terre Haute, right here in the United States of America. Change is not saying that we've made great economic progress under George Bush and then proposing tax cuts, $200 billion for corporations, including $4 billion to ExxonMobil. Change is giving a tax cut to 95% of Americans. As I've proposed, 95% of the American people would get a tax cut under the Obama plan, and I wouldn't leave $100 million out like John McCain does, because you deserve some relief from high gas prices and food prices. You need a little more money in your pockets. Change is not a health care plan. This is what John McCain's proposed, which says we're going to end the tax deduction for employers that give health care benefits to their employees, which means that employers will stop providing health care and then giving you a $5,000 credit to buy your own health care, except it costs $12,000 to $14,000. I guess that is change. It's just not the kind of change we need. Here's what change is saying to people who already have health insurance, and the employers who are providing it will work to lower your premiums by up to $2,500 per family per year. And if you don't have health insurance, you can get the same kind of health care that members of Congress give themselves. and investing in prevention so people aren't going to the emergency room for treatable illnesses, and not waiting 20 years from now to do it or 10 years from now to do it, but doing it by the end of my first term as president. That's the change that we need. Change is not continuing the same energy policies of George Bush's. The same energy policies over the last 30 years that have led us to each and every year increase the amount of oil that we import from overseas. Borrowing from China to pay to Saudi Arabia. That's not change. John McCain, he actually said something I agree with. He said, you know, the reason we haven't seen any serious energy policy for 30 years is because politicians in Washington have just been doing the bidding of the special interests. He's right about that. Here's the problem. He's been there 26 of those 30 years. And during that time, he has opposed renewable energy. He has opposed wind farms. He has opposed solar energy. So for him to suddenly get up in front of on these ads, he's in front of a windmill saying, he's looking out in the distance. He's saying, this is me, I'm gonna make us energy independent. If he had had his way in the Senate, there wouldn't be a wind tower there, there'd be a gopher hole. There wouldn't be anything there. That's not change. So here's what we're gonna do. Here's what an Obama administration is gonna do. We are going to work with the automakers so that we are creating the fuel-efficient cars of the future, not in Japan, not in South Korea, but right here in the United States of America, right here in Indiana and in Michigan and Ohio. We are gonna invest $15 billion a year for 10 years. We are gonna invest in wind power and solar power and biodiesel and hydropower and geothermal, and all the clean energy alternatives of the future, and we will convert old steel mills that have closed to make wind turbines, and we'll convert old plants to make solar panels, and we are going to create 5 million new green energy jobs that cannot be exported and pay good wages right here in the United States and end our dependence on Middle Eastern oil. Change is not having no plan for education, which is essentially what John McCain has, no plan. Change is understanding that if those countries that out-teach us today will out-compete us tomorrow. And that is why I've said we're going to invest in early childhood education to make every child prepared for school. And we are going to pay our teachers higher salaries and give them more support. And we are going to say to the young people of America, if you graduate from high school, we will make sure that we are helping you to pay your tuition in exchange for community service or national service. Because you can give back to America, and America will give back to you, and that's how we're going to move this country forward. That's what change is. That's what change is. And change is not continuing the same old policies in Iraq that we have seen over the last 6.5, 7 years. We've got to have a fundamental change in how we think about our safety and our security, because we have been distracted. I said at the beginning of this war in Iraq, this was going to distract us from the central front on terrorism in Afghanistan, and that instead of talking tough about Osama bin Laden, we should actually go ahead and catch him. It is time for us to turn over responsibility to the Iraqis. They are willing to take that responsibility, and then we can stop spending $10 billion a month in Iraq and start spending that money right here in the United States of America. That's what change is. And while we're at it, we can use some of that money to treat our veterans with the dignity and the respect that they have earned. No more begging for disability payments. No more homeless veterans on the streets. So don't be fooled. These are the folks who've been in charge. John McCain's party, with the help of John McCain, has been in charge.